We arrived in New Delhi at 6 o'clock in the morning and spent the first few hours finding our way around the Grand Hotel before exploring its beautiful gardens. In the afternoon, we went on a tour of New Delhi. It's a spacious garden city with wide avenues, this one leading to the President's house, originally built for the Viceroy. Nearby are government buildings erected by the British in a fundamentally classic structure incorporating Indian motifs. Facing the presidential house is India Gate, a 45-metre high triumphal arch bearing the names of 85,000 Indian soldiers. On then to the Lodi Gardens. These beautiful gardens with mellow stone tombs of the 15th and 16th century Lodi rulers are popular for gentle strolls and family picnics. I don't know what these were, but they were very tasty. We spent a short time watching the construction of a new wicker roof for one of the park shelters. We were intrigued by the use of the big toe as a vice. Then it was back to the hotel for a well-earned sleep. The following morning we flew to Varanasi in the state of Uttar Pradesh and checked into the Radisson Hotel. From here we went out to Chowkhandi, 10 kilometres from town, where there's a 5th century stupa topped by an octagonal brick tower built in 1588. Then we went on to Sarnath, a major centre of Buddhism. In the main complex where Buddha gave his first sermon is a collection of monasteries and temples.
You can say 15,000 people were studying in this area. So what we have able to discover is a small portion of it.
This railing once stood on top of the nearby 44-metre high stupa. Along one side of the complex is a deer park. Then we were taken to a silk weaving factory, where we were given a demonstration of jacquard weaving. Afterwards we were shown a display of the beautiful fabrics made here, before returning to the hotel in Veranasi.
You can put it at home if you want some of sleep for winter.
Before dawn the next morning, we joined the thousands of pilgrims making their way to the banks of the Ganges in this, one of India's holiest cities. Stepped embankments or ghats lead down to the water. Here, under umbrellas, sit Brahmin priests, who help mourners to pray for the souls of the departed, speeding them on their way to heaven. Hawkers sell candles to float on the water in memory of a loved one. The best way to see the spectacle of the Ganges is to take a boat ride the length of the Ghats, where the most intimate rituals of life and death take place in public.
And wherever there is an umbrella, it means there's a Brahmin priest.
Pilgrims bathe symbolically in the river. For some, the bathing is more than just symbolic.
In the water, they're preparing themselves for the sunset. You can see the ladies with the saris, with the coat. Look at that man there. Look at that.
Along the river are palaces, guest houses and hospices, as it's considered highly auspicious for a Hindu to die in Varanasi.
Whole area is the energy. You know, and all these steps goes in the narrow lane, the by lane.
As the sun rose, worshippers poured Ganges water from silver bowls back into the river as an offering to the sun.
Like a painting.
Others watched its reflection in water held in cupped hands.
Coconut is a very pure fruit.
There is religious merit in having your clothes washed in the Ganges.
What we do, when we go to
Many
the
do it themselves, but there are also
break the
professional
coconut.
Dobie-wallahs who will do it for you.
Doing it, it's a very hard work. 15 rupees for the shirt. All completed, ironing, everything. You can see, in spite of so many people, it is very, very peaceful here. Very auspicious. You're going upstreams. Till 1947, only ladies were allowed to bathe.
Nearby is a modern electric crematorium. It takes a lot of practice to be able to do yoga in midstream. These towers are used for storing and cleaning river water.
See if I'm pronouncing it right. Observe.
The Jalasayan Ghat is the principal cremation ghat of the city.
But their body's burning here, but there's no bad smell because of the sandalwood, essential oil, and the herbs. Go and sink it in the water. It was
The maze of alleyways, too narrow for traffic, extend back from the river bank, exuding the smells and sounds of this holy city. Some find it all too overpowering. Back in the main town, we were instructed in the finer points of Indian highway code, which seems to be mainly keep going at a constant speed in a straight line, and everything else will weave round you. At lunchtime we flew on to Khajuraho in Madhya Pradesh, where that same afternoon we visited the temple complex. In the 10th to 11th centuries, when 85 temples were built, this now sleepy little village was the capital of the Chandela Rajput kingdom. The temples are covered with intricate carvings. Dancing girls preen and apply makeup, and the friezes show warriors in battle or marching with their horses and elephants. There are also scenes from the Kama Sutra. The temples were abandoned during the Muslim era and covered by jungle. They were found in 1840 by British tiger hunters, and 22 of them were excavated in the 1920s. Early the next morning, we left Khajuraho by car. Cows at the roadside look more normal in open country. We stopped to photograph a mini Taj Mahal, and we went into the fields for a better look. The farmer came to see what we were doing, and ended up giving us sweet potatoes and custard apples from his farm. We passed a Hindu temple and, incongruously, a very British church, where there were goats and villagers collecting firewood. Nearby, Dobiwallahs were doing the laundry in the river, watched by a heron. India is a land of contrasts, as you can see from the different types of road transport. At lunchtime we came to the palace of the Maharaja of Alipura, opposite an 11th century Hindu temple. After being introduced to the Maharaja, we were shown around the palace. From the roof garden, there are views over the village and countryside. The palace is being converted into an hotel, the only heritage hotel in the area. In the kitchen, we were shown how to cook chapatis in a tandoori oven. Continuing along the road, we entered the gateway to Orchha. A bridge over the Betwa River leads to a fortified island, where there are 3 17th century palaces, which are being renovated by highly skilled stonemasons. The corbels are carved elephants, some of which are being replaced. At the main entrance there's an elephant holding a bell as a sign of welcome. Women labourers earn £1 a day. Guards used to stand under the canopies to protect them from the sun, but they wouldn't have been allowed to enjoy the views that we could. We thought this vulture was stone, but it turned out to be real. It was just a short drive to Jhansi station, where a porter carried our luggage on his head to the platform. Here we waited with hundreds of people for the Shatabdi Express to take us to Agra, back in Uttar Pradesh. To protect the Taj Mahal from pollution, the approach is made by electric bus. For security reasons, all visitors are frisked. From the open square before the main entrance, the Taj itself was so well hidden we almost wondered where it was. Anywhere else, the red sandstone gateway to the gardens of the mausoleum would be admired as a masterpiece in its own right. As it is, it provided the perfect frame for our first view of the Taj Mahal itself. Started in 1632, it took 22 years to build this mausoleum for Empress Mumtaz Mahal, the favourite wife of the Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan. The plinth is 22 feet high, and each side of the Taj Mahal is 186 feet long. In front of the Taj stand 4 identical square gardens. It's built of white marble and is inlaid with 35 different types of precious and semi-precious stones. Other marble blocks have impressive relief carvings. Mumtaz died after delivering her 14th child at the age of 39. The tip of the finial on the dome is 240 feet above the ground. Each minaret is 137 feet high. Only a short distance away is Agra Fort, where rhesus monkeys with their bright red bottoms gather at the entrance. The fort was both military stronghold and royal complex, founded in 1565 by Akbar the Great. Each successive ruler built his own palace in his own style. Jahangir's palace is the largest private residence and has an interesting blend of Hindu and Central Asian architecture. Renovation work is in progress, and there's an interesting contrast between original and new. Once filled with water, this was where the royal ladies washed their feet. The golden pavilions are based on the roof shape of Bengali village huts, and were probably ladies' bedrooms. They overlook the grape garden, the soil for which was reputedly brought from Kashmir. Next to this is the Khas Mahal, used as a drawing and sleeping room by Shah Jahan. Shah Jahan was imprisoned by his son in the pretty octagonal tower, and he finished his days gazing at the Taj Mahal across the Yamuna River. The tower has beautiful marble filigree work and is inlaid with semi-precious stones. The Diwan-e-Am was the hall of public audience. Nobles gathered under the vaulted roof, and the emperor sat on a marble throne on a raised platform. The area outside was for the general public. Nearby stands the Pearl Mosque, which is not open to visitors. We returned to the Mughal Sheraton Hotel for a stroll in its peaceful grounds. It was time for a final look at the Taj Mahal from the hotel roof before sunset. We had to drive through the middle of Agra to move on to our next destination. It's a good job it was a quiet time of day. Cows are everywhere in India, in the country, in the middle of the town, and even on the main roads. All are owned by someone, but they scavenge food from the markets and roadside rubbish. At the end of the day, they always find their own way home. The sanctity of the cow goes back to ancient times, as during famine it was the only animal able to provide infants with milk. After an hour, we arrived at the gates of Fatehpur Sikri, India's best preserved ghost town. The central pillar of the private audience hall supports a crisscross of bridges to its upper balconies. Local children dived into the water tank for bakshish.
Okay, one more. One more.
Started in 1568, Fatehpur Sikri was the first purpose-built Mughal capital in India. 16 years after completion it was abandoned due to failure of the water supply. After the king retired to his raised bed, the floor beneath was flooded to keep the room cool and act as an assassin alarm. Just outside the gates of the city is the Friday Mosque. Continuing through rural India, we crossed into the state of Rajasthan. Here we came across a reminder that this is a desert region. Local ladies were collecting water at the village pump. All along the roadside were examples of superb stonemasonry. We arrived at Jaipur in what appeared to be rush hour. It was a relief to finally arrive at the Rajputana Sheraton. In the morning we were up early to explore the grounds, before going to reception to join our guide. We were seen off by a local musician and the hotel doorman. First we went through the gate of the pink city of Jaipur to the Palace of the Winds. This is nothing more than an empty facade, In its many bay windows, ladies of the palace could overlook the main street of this planned city without themselves being seen. The massive palace at Amber is just 6 miles from Jaipur. It stands on a hill commanding a narrow gorge. The traditional way to arrive at the fort is on the back of an elephant. Visitors dismount in the Jaleb Chowk, the outer courtyard. At first glance, the decoration of the buildings looks like the inlay work at Agra, but here the decoration was all painted into the plaster whilst it was still wet, which is why it doesn't peel off. A flight of stairs leads to the inner courtyard, where there's a hall of public audience. The Ganesh Gate leads into the formerly private part of the palace. Here is the Sheesh Mahal, or Mirror Palace. Other parts of the palace are richly decorated with frescoes and stained glass. Throughout the inner palace are several courtyards and terraces. From the top of the fort are excellent views over Amber. At the bottom of the hill is a small garden. From here there's a good view of the old city wall and of the palace. Next we went to a block printing factory.
In this art we use teak wood blocks and natural colors. So master block, it makes the outline of the design like this. With the next block he going to fill the color. This design is 4 color design. He going to fill one more. Now this design is complete.
The fixing solution changes the colour of the dyes.
It's changed the color.
This was just for demonstration, but we saw large pieces of cloth being printed in just the same way. The factory also made carpets.
From back side, 1/3 from front side, and it is a loop like English.
This is a perfect job for young mothers. The Jantar Mantar is home to the world's largest sundial. The scale is marked off at 20-second intervals. The complex contains many instruments for measuring the positions of various constellations, such as the Great Bear, at any given time. The data was used for astrological calculations. At the entrance to the nearby city palace are 2 silver urns, which were used by a former Maharaja to take holy Ganges water to England, preferring not to risk the English water. The main palace has 7 stories and 7 courtyards, an apparently auspicious number. We were taken to a raised temple courtyard in the city centre to experience the organised chaos of Jaipur's traffic.
Seen those small dark the 100,000 rickshaw in Jaipur.
This was followed by a walk through the market stalls.
What anything. That's more important.
This isn't bread, it's sugar.
Okay. I have your earrings now.
We left Jaipur on the new 6-lane highway. This didn't stop us meeting cows and pedestrians. Cycles and even trucks often went the wrong way. We stopped for lunch at Pushkar. This is the site of a particularly holy Brahma temple. The hotel aroma really is Lonely Planet recommended. The beautiful lake in the heart of the town is one of the most sacred in India. Nearby stands a Sikh temple, and other temples are at the side of the street. After a short wait at the level crossing, we continued to the Fortune Ahmed Hotel in Jodhpur. The Meherangarh Fort at Jodhpur commands the heights of formidable sheer cliffs on the eastern rim of Rajasthan's Thar Desert. It was built in the 15th century. From the top there are magnificent views over the blue city. The colour blue is supposed to keep insects away. The sheer sides of the buildings provide perches for parakeets. Much of the delicate stone tracery in the buildings which surround a central courtyard is designed so that the ladies of the court could look down on proceedings below without being seen. The museum houses a collection of howdahs or elephant saddles for the Maharaja and his ladies. There are also palanquins on which they were carried by servants. The Sheesh Mahal has large, regularly shaped mirrors, unlike the other mirror palaces we've seen. The audience hall is richly gilded. The king's bedroom is decorated with dusty, oversized Christmas baubles. The fort also houses a collection of antique royal cradles. We were given a demonstration of turban tying.
9 meter long, 1 meter wider. Turban is very useful in our Hindu culture. When farmer getting back from farm, they can use it, comb, mirror, pipe for smoking, everything they put in the turban. For more business.
These are the handprints of royal wives who burnt themselves to death to avoid capture by their enemies. Spikes on the gates were to prevent enemies using elephants as battering rams. Locals fed the chipmunks every day. The nearby mausoleum was built on the spot where Maharaja Jaswant Singh II was cremated in 1899. Near to the main gate of Jodhpur is the market. Ladies from surrounding villages come in groups to do their shopping. It's quite an occasion with lots of joking and haggling. The spoils are carried home on their heads. As well as fresh fruit and vegetables, they can also buy rice, pulses, spices, poppadoms and sweets. It's the first time we've ever seen toast on a market stall though. Then we went back to the hotel for our first free afternoon in 10 days. On the road again, we passed trailers overloaded with cattle food, and were passed ourselves on the near side. Not that there's anything unusual there. First stop was at a village textile cooperative. Here they sold everything: wedding dresses, handbags, duvet covers, pashminas, and even poofs. We had this bed throw made while we waited.
Is like a Bollywood star.
Then we went to a small farm. In a shelter round the back was a loom where the farmer and his wife made rugs. Traditionally they're always made by husband and wife teams. The husband chooses the patterns and the wife the colours.
So this is
Naturally, they hoped we would buy one. After lunch, we came to Ranakpur. In a remote valley stands one of the largest and most important Jain temples in the whole of India. Built of marble in the 15th century, it comprises 84 shrines and assembly halls, supported by 1,444 columns, all intricately carved and no two alike. Jainism developed in India in the 6th century BC. Jains believe in reincarnation and non-violence. The supreme commandment is never to harm any living creature, the natural consequence of which is vegetarianism. Then we drove into the hills, where we stopped at an isolated farm. Mother and daughter showed us round. When we said we wanted to take photographs of them, the daughter rushed into the bedroom to get out Mother's best sari, but our guide dissuaded her as we didn't have much time. They went back to the car with us, where our driver was waiting. Further along the road, a pair of oxen were operating a bucket chain to fetch water from the well. In the nearby village, we were taken to the little hospital, and even given a guided tour of the nurses' quarters. As dusk fell, the cows were making their way back home, and fruit bats were roosting in the trees. It was time for us to head somewhere for the night as well. The Grand Laxmi Vilas Palace at Udaipur, a former royal guest house, with very modern facilities. As the sun rose, we found what a superb position the hotel was in, set in lovely gardens overlooking one of the 3 lakes at Udaipur. Then we went into town. Above the front of this shop was a display of wedding dresses. Directly opposite stands a 17th century Jagdish temple, which is intricately carved.
Except we are a bad esprits, bad things. When you enter in the temples, we are having all the demons. Yeah, elephant is.
Stone elephants flank the entrance steps. The car park at the city palace was once used for royal elephants. Now monkeys leap on top of the arches. From the ramparts there's a marvellous view of the city of Udaipur. These children were here on a school trip. In front of the palace there are beautiful gardens with fountains. The Maharajas, a higher rank than Maharaja, had 5 palaces around Udaipur, and this was their winter quarters. Let into the outer wall are shops selling local handicrafts. The outside of the building has colourful paintings. The balcony over the main courtyard has been recently renovated. Inside the palace, the rooms are richly decorated with gold leaf, mirrors and coloured glass. The palace is built around a hill, so what looks like a roof garden is actually the top of the hill. Part of the palace is still lived in by the current Maharaja. We had tea in the Crystal Gallery, from where there are beautiful views over the former summer palace, now the Lake Palace Hotel on Lake Pachola. To the north are the 18th century Maid of Honour Gardens, an ornamental pleasure garden where the Hindu Maharaja kept the Muslim dancing girls presented to him by the Mughal Emperor. The fountains in the garden imitate the sounds of the monsoon, from shower to torrential storm. Outside the gate was a coconut stall, one of the very few we'd seen on this trip. Chris couldn't resist buying one. We went for a boat ride on Lake Pachola. The boat leaves from the side of the city palace, which towers above the lake. To the north of the palace are bathing and Dhobi Ghats. With all this water, Udaipur is known as the Venice of the East. The man-made lake covers 5 square miles and is surrounded by hills, gardens and temples. The Lake Palace Hotel occupies every square inch of Jagniwas Island. We stopped for a while on Jagmandir Island, which is surrounded by elephant statues. The island has an impressive chhatri carved from grey-blue stone, and it has an attractive courtyard with a pond in the centre. The glorious sunset over the lakes of Udaipur brought our memorable Indian experience to an end.